when a child is told that, they're not able to express themselves. So you become an introvert. So, you got, people don't understand when children come out of a single family household, what really happens in their household. And, if I go to, the cursing, the parent telling you, calling you dumb, you stupid, you wouldn't mount to anything, you hold, those things really comes in even with the read and comprehension and the written expression disability. So you grow up in those type of environments that hinder you from being able to be this at the same pace as other students in the classroom time. So again, go back to coming to Columbia, 3 grades behind. So what do you do with a student who's 3 grades behind the other? You put them in special ed classes. So what happens in special ed classes? Well, in special ed classes, you have the students who really don't want to learn, and you have the students who want to learn. So the teacher spends half the classroom time trying to calm down the students who really don't want to learn, and by the time she probably gets to class at a calm point, guess what? The bell is ringing, and it's time to go on to your next class.
Wow. Wow.
So this is my journey. So, I always was something that my mom always said that we was going to go to college. I don't even know how she always enforced going to college. Well, she was a forcer that you was going to graduate from high school, and I think she enforced that because she didn't graduate from high school. But then she enforced college. So I'm like, my mom, she really didn't know, but she was enforcing college and something that I wasn't prepared for. So here I enter into Howard Community College, and anybody knows that you have to take some type of placement test when you go into a community college. So I'm placement test, and my reading skills are below average, and my writing skills are below average. So here I am in another struggle, trying to overcome college. So I'm in college, and I'm failing practically all my classes except probably gym and art, something like that. But all the rest of the classrooms, math, I'm just failing. And so at this point, I drop out because I was like, I can't do this no more. I even tried to go to black college, or all black college, what we call BCUs. I tried to go to that, and still failing because I'm thinking maybe, there's a different teaching curve if I go to a black college opposed to, community college where it's mixed, still both colleges drop out.
Wow.
And so at this time, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting there, I was praying, and I was talking to the Lord, and the Lord told me to go back to school. And I told the Lord, well, I got a T-shirt for this. I done that, did that. I'm not doing this no more. I'm not going back to school. And so I just kind of shut the Lord down. It was a Saturday. I remember it like it was yesterday. And so that Sunday morning when I got to church, my pastor was walking back and forth. He kind of like tuned into the spirit before he even speaks. And the first words he said out of his mouth, the Lord had told somebody that they have to go back to school. God got a funny sense of humor. And so at that point, I knew that I had to go back to school. I knew I had to be obedient. So here go my journey again. Still, no testing, no accommodations, because remember, in the 70s, they didn't have any of that. Yeah. So here I'm back at start point again, back in college. And so I'm in English, and I have been trying to get a testing done, but what happened was the test cost about $12,000. That's, this thorough testing. So the doors kept shutting in my face because I couldn't get testing to find out what I really had. I still don't know what I have. All I know from the 70s is I have a disability.
Wow.
And so here I am starting back in school again, and I'm right back at the same place. I'm in English, and I'm failing, literally a D average. And at this point, matter of fact, the tutor that I had, he wanted to just check my papers. He didn't want to show me how to master English. It was just, okay, I'll check your papers. And I said to him, well, I don't want to be in school not knowing how to master this. And he said, well, I can't tutor you. So here I'm at a D average.
Pause there. I want to put a pause right there. It's something that just checked me right there. Now, you with the tutor, you done said something. You with the tutor that did not want to help you to master English. Now,
help me.
They want to help you master English. Now, that goes back to, for some reason that just checked me, because at the end of the day, God was good, is good. We're going to hear more about your journey. God was good and still good in regards to allowing you to master the very things that the world was saying you could not master, you were able to master. And what the point I want to make is, for those that are listening, that you heard just a little bit of Tonia's story. You've already heard how many doors, how many times it seemed like this disability was going to win. But God would not allow the disability to win. God allowed even Tonia, who struggled through what they say, middle school, high school, even trying to get into college, struggling. And then here we have the audacity of a tutor who did not want to help her master. Just wanted to go over, just wanted to skim through her work. But he didn't want to take the time out to show her how to master it. So I want you to finish your story, but for some reason I want to talk about what were some of the steps that God began to show you how to master. And we're talking about reading, right, in English.
Right. So some of the steps that you do in school. So everybody who has a disability will always probably need some type of accommodations.
Okay.
So you're always, there's accommodations out there, whether you're in the workforce or whether you're in school, you're going to need accommodations. So
go back and explain what accommodations mean. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the accommodations are, they have the ability is called JAN. It's called Job Accommodation Network. It's on a disability website. And what happens is, if you put in your disability, like if I put in reading comprehension, writing expression disability, it will give me all a list of accommodations that I need to be successful in accommodation, be successful in whatever I'm doing with the accommodations. So one of my accommodations was a smart pen. And so what a smart pen is a notebook that when you're sitting in your classroom time, you take and you press a button and it starts to record the teacher, and then you press the button when you finish and it stops. But not only does it record the teacher, you're able to write certain main points that you think that you're hearing from the teacher. And when you get home, you're able to upload it on a computer. So everything that you've written and everything that you heard, you're able to upload it to the computer, and it's able to do that whole thing, record that whole thing back to you when you get home. Now,
wow.
That's one of the accommodations that I had to use in the classroom. And so with your accommodations, too, you have to be disciplined. You cannot not be disciplined because it seems like with your accommodations, I always had to stay like probably 1 or 2 steps ahead of the classroom. Sometimes when I took my test, I had to do an oral test because I could not recall all the amount of information that was given to me on a test. And so on the test, another commendation that I had was allotted time. So say if you was given half an hour for the test, I probably was given an hour for the test. If you was given 45 minutes, then it was always a lot of time given to me on a test. And another commendation that I had was a tutor, because I always have to have a tutor for going over, checking my papers. Now, what happened when I was in undergrad, the tutor that I had, she had a disability herself. So she was the student support, and she had a hearing disability. So what happens when I write down my stuff, and sometimes it's all crumbled on the paper. So you will have to, if you know me, like she began to know me, she knew what questions to ask me, to pull out of me, what was the information that I was trying to get on the paper. Some people were so prejudiced against it because some tutors just didn't want to help you. They didn't want to spend that time, because sometimes it could take, now imagine to have to write a 10 to 12-page paper in school. And remember, when you graduate from your undergrad, you have a 20-page paper that you had to do. So I had to do my papers in parts. So I would have to take part of my paper, spend hours with a tutor. And some people would get frustrated with me because they'd be trying to say, well, what you trying to write? Not understanding that I would have to explain to some of my tutors that I had a disability, because your tutors don't know that you have a disability. All they know is you come into them and you have a struggle in reading and writing, and so they're trying to help you along. So I was able to attain my associate's degree in business management, my undergrad in women's gender studies, and my master's in pastoral counseling. But that didn't come with prejudice from teachers. When some teachers found out that I had a disability, they made it harder in classes for me. So at some point, in some junctures, I didn't even tell some of the teachers. I just tried to struggle through in some of my classes because I didn't want the prejudice or the discrimination that goes with people and their lack of understanding of what my disability was. I remember one teacher in particular. She in my undergrad, she wrote me up for plagiarism, and I wasn't plagiarizing. I forgot to cite the person who I was writing. She knew I had a disability, but the way she approached me and saying, well, what is this? Well, a person with a disability, we always got to process stuff. You can't just approach us with just half information. You have to approach us with the whole thing of what you're saying. And because I didn't know what she was saying until after she walked away and I went home and said, oh, well, she was asking me about this, she turned me into the school, and I almost didn't graduate because of that. And she knew I had a disability. So you get your prejudice with this in people's lack of understanding, because they don't want you to attain the same type of degrees that they have, because they feel like, well, I'm smarter, or whatever they got, whatever their lack of understanding is from the disability. So that's my school journey, but I've also had the workforce journey, what I have not been able to master yet. I've lost quite a few jobs because of they don't want to accommodate you in the, especially in the private industry. I don't know about the government industry. I don't know about the state industry, but I know I've lost so many jobs in the private industry because of my disability. They just don't want to accommodate you. Go ahead.
Before we go over to the job, I want to talk about the school and what advice. Well, first of all, what does somebody? Well, it's so many things in my mind. Let's start off. Hey, how did you? What was your process of finally finding out what your disability was? Because I know it was a journey, just trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with me? What was the process so somebody can know that maybe have a child or maybe themselves? What was your process of finding out this is what my disability is? That way, that's your first start to then knowing now what I got to do next? That means you got to do, you said, the accommodations and all that. But first of all, how do you tell somebody how did you find out the name and what your struggle was?
Okay, so in trying to get my Social